So, all right. So, okay, hold your nanners. Hold your nanners. So in this series that I'm going to start doing on TikTok, what we're going to do is we're going to create a 3D tumbler. And at the end of it, I'm going to test Flynn Sister epoxy on it. It's going to be a pretty massive tumbler. It's going to be kind of almost in comparison to the Pumpkin King that I made. And I haven't finished. So I got a little bit to do on it.
What do you need to do?
Well, that's a great question, kiddo. I still got to make a little rat skull to go down here on the base.
Where's the rat?
I'll show you later. I still have to finish a glow-in-the-dark green epoxy ooze that will drip down from the chin onto the base below. And then also...
So that means it's coming from that?
It'll come from behind the cigar that he's smoking because he is the king boss pumpkin after all. And then also we're going to make some realistic clay pumpkin seeds and guts that will come down from the hole or the straw topper at the top, because you can drink from this because it is an actual stainless steel mug that we built. Apart from that, he's going to also be sculpted a pitchfork that he's going to be holding. So this hand will be supported with a pitchfork, and then it will be attached to at the base. And then I'm going to make the actual tines that come out above the pitchfork. So that's going to be pretty challenging, just because of the thickness of the clay. Is going to be very fragile. But it's more of a trophy than an actual drinking tumbler, but you could drink from it if you wanted to. So of course, when I get it completely done, we'll be drinking some orange Kool-Aid from the top of this thing.
I wish I could drink out of that.
So this is the size of the tumbler that we're going to be using. It's a 30 ounce, and we'll get rid of the topper for now. We do not need that. It will come in later on down the road.
I like the bottom because it's so beautiful. It's like a girl cup.
It won't look like a girl cup, but anybody can drink from it. We'll see how it turns out. Now, I want to design this. We're going to get Clay out in just a minute. I said that she could be my helper, and she's helping a little bit by talking. All right.
Are you getting clay?
Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to use this turner for the life of the build.
This is your clay, and this is my clay.
Welcome in, everybody.
I'm getting ready for the clay.
Getting ready for clay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to begin by pressing out some clay, and we're going to lay that on the base itself. As I apply the clay to the base here, I just want to make sure that it has a relatively smooth base. That way I can just create just a uniform clay structure before we add any kind of aluminum foil around the actual tumbler. So we're going to build up just about maybe a 1/4 of an inch of clay here before we do anything else. I want it to be semi-smooth. Alright everybody, so at this point I'm going to go ahead and jump onto just a voiceover for the video. Now, as you can see, we are doing this fully live on TikTok, so I'm able to engage with other people in my TikTok live, and my daughter's beside me having a good time, using the clay on her own. And I love being able to engage the kids in the studio, and I'm just ever so often giving her a little bit more clay out of the blocks that I'm using, just so she can have fun and just tinker with the clay and make some like mermaids or some princesses or something onto the side. Now, as you can see here, I'm really just working to build up the base here before we begin the actual sculpture of the tumbler. But you can see I'm just building up just like a general flat layer, and that's just a layer to create the bottom of the overall sculpture piece. And then what we'll do is if I need to build up some more dirt texture or build up that mound of dirt, what I'll do is I'll continually add aluminum foil instead, and so I can get the overall just shape that I want. And that keeps me from having to use too much clay. If I come back later on down the road, I can always introduce more aluminum foil if I need to build up even more layers and bulkiness to the base. But what we're going to do is we're just going to build out a general shape of the overall dirt mound at the bottom of the grave. And then what we'll do is after aluminum foil, we'll kind of fold in the sides just to kind of blend it all together. Right now I'm just trying to get the overall kind of centerpiece of where I want the actual tumbler to be sitting and making contact with that clay base. And then what we'll do is we'll take little rolls of clay here and we'll go ahead and kind of blend that in around the very bottom of the tumbler there. and this will create a suction to the bottom of that base. And as you continually work the clay up and away, it will create just a really solid, strong foundation. Now, as we increase the amount of clay at the top of the gravestone, it would become top heavy slightly. So just remember, you don't want to put in too much torque on the top of the tumbler until you can really get things baked in and get it locked into position. Here we are adding that aluminum foil, and we're just going to kind of bulk this out just a little bit, not a whole lot. I could continuously add a lot of aluminum foil in here and really bulk it out, but we may wait and do that later on down the road as the design takes shape. I really don't know where I want the overall textures of the gravestone or the dirt to be, or if I'm going to introduce any kind of like skulls or rotting bones, or so we'll see how that evolves over time as we get to that stages later on in the design process. Just slowly kneading in some of that clay there. It does take quite a bit of time just to bulk it out. Now, we're using quite a bit of clay during this process. I believe we used around 3.5 to 4 pounds of clay to build this initial blocking in of the gravestone. Now, we do have a little bit more detailed work to do after this video that I would do on the side before we go into any other videos in the series. So just remember though that if you were to kind of tune into this on TikTok Live next week, then we will be kind of detailing in the overall textures of the rock of the gravestone. And depending on the time elapsed during that process, we may work on the base a little bit, but I probably will focus more so on the monogramming of the gravestone, any kind of like skulls or detail work, and then of course some textures that really kind of bring out the overall ornate gravestone type of look. Rolling up the edges there, just because we don't need that much clay kind of bursting from the edges, and we just want the main base and then a little bit of dirt on the front of it. It's almost going to be as if the gravestone and the arm bursting from the dirt are going to be side by side. So it's almost as if it's two separate sculptures on one item. But of course, they need to have share the same base to create just a seamless piece of art here. Now here I'm just kind of demonstrating to the viewers on TikTok the overall shape that I would like to create. I did say that I wanted to create kind of like a Tim Burton-esque kind of look to it, kind of a little bit of cartoonish. But as this evolves, I may bring in more and more ornateness to it, just because I wasn't able to really take away as much clay on the edges of the gravestone as I had imagined, just to really thin it out quite a bit. And I actually come out with a large gravestone, a little bit larger than what I originally intended, but it's going to be absolutely incredible when it's fully detailed out in grays and washes. We may introduce a few vines here and there, but I really don't want to introduce too many greeneries into this project. If I do, it will probably be like a flocking or something like that, just to create like an overall trophy diorama look to it. But I also might leave that out. So we'll kind of have to see how that turns out when I get to the design of the actual base itself, whether I introduce any kind of greens into this. So as you can see there, I did wrap armature wire around it. Mainly I was demonstrating to my TikTok followers here that and viewers that I sometimes will do this in different grades and thicknesses of armature wire over different types of surfaces to create an overall stronger base. It really gives something extra for that clay to hold on to, and when it bakes into place and it kind of adheres to the stainless steel, it really does create a strong surface. Now later on in the process, because I really needed to take off a lot more clay than I had originally intended to create the overall kind of like shape of the tapered gravestone, I do have to come in and clip some of these out. So I will say that although I was demonstrating this, I will have to remove some of these later on in the process to get the overall clay removed that I need to. Now I do have a lot more shaping to do after this video, but this just gives you a ballpark of what the first stage of any kind of project like this would be, and that is blocking in the general shape. So I'm just going to go ahead, and my daughter is rolling out some clay in the lasagna press. She's rolling out large segments, cranking that little rotating arm, and I'm applying these one at a time to the actual side of the tumbler. Now this is obviously very hard to get on camera for TikTok Live. So it's either I show the big 30-ounce tumbler or I show myself. I have to choose one or the other sometimes. kind of cutting some of the base there. I really kind of want to narrow that out a little bit, if anything, just to kind of decrease the overall footprint that it has on the base itself. I can always come back later on down the road when I'm detailing the base and the dirt and all, and I can kind of expand that out in a way, but at least where it's making the footprint to the actual aluminum foil or the turner, I want it to be a little bit smaller. So here I am, I'm using just a flat bladed sculpting tool here. I'm being very, very, very rough with it. I'm applying a lot of pressure here, and I'm really just trying to smooth it out. I do have some right angle clay sculpting tools that I do use once in a while, but I decided I really, really wanted to freehand this. And it gives it a really rustic look, and later on down the road, if I'm able, even if I do smooth it out quite a bit, you will always see some small defects where I applied too much pressure, or I took too much clay away, or I left like a little divot missing. And as we come in later on down the road and we really give the gravestone a lot of detail, whether that be like a brick texture or like a stone texture with aluminum foil, chipping the edges where the right angles are of the gravestone, and we add like a topper to it, which really increases the ornateness to it. We're going to make sure that it's very rustic. I want it to look like it's very deteriorated. Even when we come in to do the paint later on in later videos, I'll probably make sure that the very top part is a little bit more of a higher light tone, to make it look like it's got a lot of wear from the elements on the top of the gravestone. That's where that dry brushing is really going to come into play, and I look forward to that process, because that's really where it really transforms. Until then, you just have to imagine it in your head as you build some of these projects, and then just run with it. This is the part of the project where you really just have to trust the process and put the time in to build the overall structure that you need, so that you can enjoy the later processes of creation and detail work. Alright, so you can see I'm just continuously adding the clay in, getting those right angles kind of like locked in a little bit. And what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of using my fingers, and I'm pinching the edges of the corners there. And then what I'll come in and I'll use just a scrape blade here, and I'm just using the large size one just so I can get a lot of surface area as I take off layers. And I'm just taking off layers on all four sides. I haven't done the back part yet. That'll probably be the last one I'll do. I started running out of time, so I just wanted to focus on the first three sides so I can kind of show TikTok live what I was doing in a way. But what we're going to do is I really want to kind of shave down the two sides there to give it kind of like a swooping tapered motion from top to bottom. So it can kind of start off pretty thin, and then it really gets thicker towards the top. And that is even before I put any kind of detail work into the actual the gravestone itself. So we haven't even, at this point, I haven't even thought about any of the details, any of the ornate like little details or additions that would kind of bring up the overall dimension and really the difficulty of the project. Here I am starting to remove that armature wire. I really was hoping to have that in there for the strength, but I needed to remove more clay than I had originally anticipated, and I really needed to thin this out. It was way too thick, and I needed to take it away. So that way I could just decrease the overall surface area and the diameter of the item. I really needed to have it a smooth surface, and that's why I'm continuously shaving off clay until I can kind of get the overall shape that I need. It needs to be tapered, and it needs to be smooth. Little deficiencies, yeah, I'm okay with that, but it needs to look like a gravestone, and that's why we're taking so much time here now to block this in and get the overall four shapes in the way we need them to be. This is a long process, but once it's done and we start the detail work, it really pays off to go ahead and get the structure the way that it needs to be the first time around. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go ahead and build up some meat and material around the very top of the actual gravestone here. I really wanted to create more of a taper there from the top to the bottom, and I didn't have enough material there at the top. I knew I was going to have to do this. It's just at this point we're reaching that stage where I need to start to apply some of that clay. It requires me to go ahead and blend it downward again, and then create the right angles on all four corners, and then we'll even scrape it away there, kind of shaping it and kind of creating the overall shape that we need. Now just remember that I haven't taken as much off on the sides as I need to yet, but we will get to that in the last part of this little video here, where you'll see it really start to taper out quite a bit before we roll into the end of the video here. But as you can see, this is a continuous process of just building layers, taking away, until we can get to just the overall shape. Now, if you're working from a reference photo, that your creation of a gravestone like this would be slightly different from mine. But again, trust the process and then just take your time and really enjoy what you're doing. This is supposed to be the fun part of it. You're using lots of clay. You're not really like down and really focused on what you're doing as far as cutting in small details. You really get to be messy during this part and just really have fun building up the layers and getting the shape that you want. And it pays off later in the process, as I said before. Now, as you can see here, I'm taking lasagna rolls of clay and I'm kind of building those up on the top part right there. You'll see me do that quite a few times over the last half of the video there. And I'm really just building up a large block there before I smooth it down. And then there you can see I'm kind of just scraping away some of that excess at the top of the lip there. I want that to be a relatively smooth process in the long term, and that's where the actual cup topper is going to be sitting at. So I'll make an entire cup topper to kind of blend in the very top of the gravestone before I do any kind of bake work. That way it's all uniform and it has like a topper. I'll probably give it a large gap between the actual acrylic top that comes with the cup and the actual topper that I make. So the magnets will probably be inset into the clay itself. But it's going to be really nice when I get all said and done. It's just a little bit before we get to that process. I'll probably do the cup topper off of TikTok Live. I'll probably do that with YouTube or something similar. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. Maybe I'll do that as a YouTube exclusive here on YouTube. But we'll see. We'll see how I feel like when I get to that stage. I could also do that off camera and just really record just a nice, really great video here for you guys on YouTube and create some little highlight clips for TikTok if I get to that point. There we are, really starting to see some of the dimension there of the gravestone. We haven't tapered the very top of the tumbler yet, but we will get to that later on in the process there. Alright you guys, so at this point 3 hours had elapsed and I'm not willing to go over the scheduled time that I had created for this TikTok Live. But as you can see, we're really starting to see some of the dimensions of the gravestone coming through. It's got a lot of shaping yet to do, but I will get to that later and then you can kind of pick up in the next live video. I may record a separate video of this, just kind of me detailing some of the work on the kind of shaping and modifying as we go. But you can kind of see this is where we are at this point at the end of the very first session, which we did on TikTok Live. Thanks to all those who were able to join us there, and I hope y'all enjoyed this part of the series. Look forward to the rest of this playlist appearing on YouTube over the next 2 months. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can see my latest and newest videos as they come out over the next year. Later, guys.